started talking about the eclipse and talking about all the hype surrounding it, I mentioned how what I was seeing was a lot of fertility references all over the place, and that in the form of obelisks. There was that story about obelisks being in our stomachs or something, and they've been there the whole time, and we just discovered it, and they look like little obelisks. Of course, we tie the obelisk to the Osiris and Isis and Horus mythologies, the ancient mythos from Egypt. And if you look into that, if you're new to this type of information, if you look into it, the parts, it's all about the parts. We had the obelisk thing. There was a lot of space talk going on with, and of course, before the eclipse on Monday, on Sunday, the moon passed over Venus, and there was an eclipse of Venus, which there's a lot of references. You look at the goddess Venus with fertility in that regard as well. So fertility seems to be a theme. And CBS News, I think the mainstream news outlets know this or are being led with that carrot, if you will, to report on things, because CBS News had this headline: Delta passengers get engaged mid-flight while seeing total solar eclipse from 30,000 feet. And each one of these has little videos, and we're not going to get into details. That's not what's important. It's the theme here. Because here's another one: Yahoo Life mirroring WKRN headline: Clarksville couple ties the knot during total solar eclipse in Kentucky. It's out there in Kentucky. Stuff going down. NBC, DFW, proposal of a lifetime. Couple gets engaged during solar eclipse in North Texas. So again, a lot of marriage talk. It was just an observation, and these are still just observations. I'm not saying that there is anything really going on, but given how media is used these days to signal things and to communicate things that are beyond just the words and the letters and everything that is in front of you through these outlets, I can't help but just mention this weird pattern. Now, there's the other side of that, the birth side. And the only one that I really saw get featured anywhere big was ABC News, and this was on Good Morning America as well. The headline: Mom gives celestial name to baby born during total solar eclipse. I know Elon Musk started the weird name for children trend. I mean, I guess that was kind of already going on, but Elon made it super mainstream. But let's see what this says. A Texas mother welcomed a baby girl during Monday's total solar eclipse and named her Sol, which means the sun in Spanish. Alicia Alvarez, 34, told Good Morning America she knew she wanted to choose a celestial name for her second child since she had already named her first child Luna, or Moon. How convenient. Well, quote, I love how the sun and the moon sounded together. I was like, that's a perfect name, the Fort Worth resident explained. Fort Worth, another Texas. And then just to have her during the eclipse was like obviously not planned. Obviously. If somebody else planned it. But there you go. There's a nice little photo of her and her cute baby. Sol Celeste is her name. Alvarez said she went into labor earlier than expected, but didn't think she would deliver on Monday ahead of her April 17th due date. Quote, the doctor had joked, Dr. Carolyn Collar, she joked, you're going to have this baby on the eclipse, so then you have your sun and the moon, Alvarez recalled, and I didn't pay her any attention. So that is interesting. What are the odds that a woman names her first child Luna or Moon, and then her second child is born during the eclipse, and then she names the child Sol, as in sun. So the child's name is Sol Celeste Alvarez. And, Again, it's sort of bridging the real world with this new astro-spiritual type of situation going on. It's very fascinating. Alvarez said she was able to deliver naturally and without an epidural at Methodist Mansfield Medical Center. Wow. Very strong woman without an epidural. Soul weighed in at 6 pounds, 7 ounces, and was 20 inches long. Okay, so no weird numbers there, at least. She opened her eyes as soon as she got out, Alvarez said. Quote, she was like, I'm ready to see the eclipse. She was like, I want to see the world. I need to see this. All right. So there you have it. Her big sister Luna met her and was smiling. And it's just this nice, lovely story about a child that was born during the eclipse. But I find it very interesting. Very interesting. The Weather Channel also carried the same story, which, whatever that means. But there's another thing that happened here that we need to discuss. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take a moment here because I just looked down and my nose gushing blood. Wow. Okay. All right, one second, everybody. I'm not sure what happened here. This is very unusual. Could people see it? I don't want to really go back on camera if I'm like covered in blood. It's not like appropriate. But okay, I think I'm okay. Wow, that is very weird. It's a weird moment. A lot of weird stuff going on. All right. Do we continue here? I guess we can continue. I'm just going to try to plug through this and just kind of get through the show. Wow, that is wild. That has not happened before. Okay. I haven't had a bloody nose in a while. Okay. All right. Actually, I might call it. I might call it. This is I apologize, everybody. I was not expecting this to happen, but I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. And we'll be back Monday, hopefully, next week. Yeah, let's do that. Just because I don't know what the heck is going on. Just ate some food. I feel okay. I feel fine, by the way, everybody. I'm not like nauseated or anything like that, but just getting a little bit of blood out of the nose. This is really weird happening live, folks. I apologize again. This is like the weirdest thing that's ever happened being live on the show. So I'm kind of in shock and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. But I think the best thing is, because at the very least I need to step aside to just kind of wash myself off and get myself together here. So maybe let's do this. I'll see what I can do. I will play a song. Just going to step into the restroom and clean up and come back and see where we're at. So let's see. Let me find something that's a couple minutes long here, so I got a little bit of time. All right, Little Owen's got some longer tracks here. Let's see, what do you guys want to hear? Little Owen. Let's do this guy right here. All right, I'll be right back. All right, folks, I'm still here. Doing okay, but I think I am going to call the show because I'm not sure what's going on. I don't think I'm in any serious situation here, but I've never had anything like that happen quite, especially on air, but definitely just in general. Thought I was just having a little bit of a runny nose, but apparently it's blood. So, okay, well, again, I was saying how we're all sort of under attack and in need of prayer. So I will just extend that and say, yes, please pray for me, for us, and apologize for the short show, but I'm just going to cut it off here, and we will be back Monday, hopefully. I think we'll be back Monday. So, yeah, apologize. Again, it's a super short show. I guess it's like a flyby, but unforeseen circumstances. So, all right. Yeah, not sure how to end it other than thanks for being here, everybody. Maybe don't share this episode with friends or family. Not the greatest one with stuff happening in real time here. But yeah, I would appreciate your prayers. Thank you to all the producers with your time, talent, treasure. We appreciate all of you. And we will see you soon. I will play just the normal outro jingle here just to get us out. Thank you, everybody.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
America, that's the power.
What's your
Coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains, I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Special edition, special report. We've got Mando Gonzalez on the road, headed towards the eclipse. We'll get into what he has to say and so much more. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor. Hey folks, investing feels overwhelming right now, doesn't it? So complicated, so many decisions, but leaving your money in the bank might not be the best thing to do. It's losing value every single day. All we need to do is look at the inflation index to see the reality of that. So if it's stressing you out and driving you nuts, why not invest smarter with Noble Gold Investments? Precious metals are simple and real. There isn't a company on the stock market that was around 2,000 years ago, but guess what? Gold was. It's always been there through wars, disasters, and turmoil. Reliable, dependable, and authentic. That's why you can't go wrong with precious metals. They've always had your back. Noble Gold Investments America-based experts will show you how to set and forget your IRA or 401k. You'll get a dedicated professional assigned to you. No hassle, no call centers. This month, Noble Gold Investments is giving a free quarter-ounce gold standard coin with every qualifying IRA investment. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to claim your gold coin. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Folks, we invested a couple of years ago, and I got to tell you, I am really glad that we did. Gold is going through the roof. Once again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com. So, Mondo, you're on the road. Welcome to the show. Brad Brady is next to you. Graham is in the back seat. And I just love this because it's just so edgy. Where are you right now? And you guys are driving to the eclipse. Let's start there.
Yeah, we are in eastern Oklahoma. We are heading to Arkansas, where the path of totality will be going. We had plans actually to be south of Dallas, Texas, and we've been watching the weather for the past few days, and today we had to make the decision. 100% cloud cover down in Texas, so that got blown out of the water. So this is our alternate plan, and so we will be north of Little Rock in that area for the totality, and we're driving today because we know that 30-some million people are going to be on the roads tomorrow
exactly.
for the eclipse. We don't want to be in the traffic.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you bringing any telescopes, any photographic equipment with you to, what are we looking at here?
So, yes, we have. We've been practicing getting things dialed in. Yesterday, we have 2 telescopes that we're bringing. One of them is a dedicated solar scope with a hydrogen alpha filter on it, a couple of them actually. So it's amazing even what our practice runs were doing yesterday, what we were able to see. We're seeing prominences launching off the side of the sun, 3 times the size of the Earth, absolutely stunning. And then we have another scope which is going to just see things in white light, and we're seeing some major storm activity, so sunspots and stuff. So we plan on getting some of that, as well as, if we can, get some landscape photography, because some people might know this, but during the eclipse, during totality, when it gets dark, there will be all the planets. The planets will all be lined up on the ecliptic. Not all of them will be able to be visible, but all the big ones, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, will all be visible and all lined up with the sun. It's actually a pretty amazing astronomical event for sure.
Yeah,
and even as some people know, this last thing is there's a comet called P12 comet. It's got a nickname of the Devil's Comet because about 6 months ago it had a couple jets flying off, which people have made the name of the Devil's Comet because of the horns. It doesn't look like that anymore, but the comet will also be visible, or at least it'll be there. You might have to use binoculars to see it, but we're hoping it shows up. No one knows exactly its brightness level during the eclipse.
Let me ask you this, and thanks so much for coming on. This is just a great interview. You're an amateur astronomer, so this is why you and Brad and Graham are headed down there with the telescopes to photograph everything. Your Psalm 19 project is just incredible because of what it shows. Just some of those photographs that you've taken of the universe showing the handiwork of God. they're just amazing, and I can't wait till the book comes out, so to speak. But there's so much scuttlebutt going around on the internet. It's an X over America. This is God's judgment. These are signs in the heavens. The Moedim, and I get all that. But cool heads need to prevail, and we don't have not be given a spirit of fear, but we're also watchmen and watchwomen. Some of the ladies are looking at this stuff too. What are your thoughts? What do you think will happen tomorrow?
Well, I can tell you exactly what the eclipse means, because it means that the moon is going to be in front of the sun and cast a shadow on the earth.
Okay.
That's what it means.
That's what it means.
I'm being a little facetious, but this is what I would say, because look, I love conspiracy. I love esoteric things. I love fun things. Obviously, you and I have done a lot of archaeological research and some of what it would be known as the more fringe elements.
Sure.
But hey, I enjoy all this. So I'm not a naysayer in that sense. I will say this, that as you said, cool heads prevailing is that nobody knows what God means by this. Is it amazing? Is it significant? I would say yes. But you have people filling in the gaps, and I understand. I'm excited for the rapture just as much or more than anybody else. And so what I'm seeing in the church right now is a couple things that are sad. One of them is people are saying, and they're declaring what they think it means, and they're speaking for God in many ways. But then, sadly, they'll turn around and go, "Well, I'm not speaking for God. I didn't say what. I'm not predicting anything." But in reality, we know where they're coming from, and so unfortunately, they'll give you all these calculations and all these interesting things, and then they'll say, this, but I'm not making any predictions. So they're doing everything but, which is kind of sad. But secondly, there's a lot of acrimony that's now happening in the church. So the devil's loving this. He's loving the Christians arguing back and forth.
Sure.
And so my attitude is, look, this is amazing. It's cool. It's an astronomical site. It's a very unique event. What does it mean? I have no idea. Nobody knows what it means. Does that mean I'm dismissing it? No, actually, I'm not dismissing it. I'm going to be right there at front row seats. But the other challenge that you have is what people need to remember is in Genesis 1, we know that God put these for signs and seasons
Sure.
and different things.
Sure.
And most of those are normal calendrical on the calendar dates that tell you when the seasons are and other things. And so you have that. But oftentimes people are going to say every eclipse is it's of a negative. That's just simply not true.
Wait.
And
Let me.
the other thing on
Mondo.
this last comment here.
Let me. You just froze. Say that statement again because it was really important, and you just froze. Say that statement one more time, please.
What I was saying was, is that people are saying that every eclipse, whether it's a solar or lunar, is an omen of some type, and
Right.
that's just simply not true. These things happen every 2 years somewhere on Earth. X's happen multiple places on Earth, and it hasn't been this X over Turkey or this X over Africa that has brought some judgment. And I'll just say this too: if you look at history of an eclipse, and I saw this. People can find the meme. They've shown all the eclipses in the past over America over the last 200 years, and you could go find something wrong or something bad that happened in any era and point it to the eclipse. There's no cheat in this world. It's like, well, there's a murder over here. So we just have to be so careful of what you said. And I'll just say this last item on this point is, again, exciting times. In Luke 21, in the Olivet Discourse, when Jesus says you'll see signs in the heavens, men's hearts failing them for fear, for things that are coming, he's in Matthew 24, he's talking about those things that are inside the tribulation period. He's not talking about an eclipse that happened in 2017, or these signs of the heavens, because the signs of the heavens go back for the last 2,000 years. What he's talking about there are these supernatural elements that are happening. Stars are falling in the tribulation. Meteors are landing. The sun is going dark, 1/3, and complete darkness. And in fact, right before he returns, the sun, the moon, and all the stars. Can you imagine this?
Yeah.
All the stars go dark. That's not natural at all.
Yeah. How does he do that? Let me ask you something here. There's a lot of scuttlebutt going around, a lot of conspiracy stuff, a lot of fear mongering. What we do know is this, and this is kind of what drives me nuts. So you don't hear word one about it in the mainstream media. Last week, the Israeli IDF forces struck an Iranian house up in Damascus, whatever, a building, and they killed like a major general. So now all of a sudden, 7 people were killed, but the general was, everybody's freaking out about that. So we know that the Iranians and Hezbollah is Iran's proxy. So in my opinion, and I want you to weigh in on this, why the eclipse is interesting, it's a complete distraction from what is happening in the Middle East, because Russia is in the Golan. This thing is not dying down, even though the IDF pulled out of Gaza. Gaza's in complete ruin. I have that from one of my sources. Gaza is a total disaster. They just found one more tunnel. They completely destroyed it, one of the longest tunnels. That's completely destroyed. So, yeah, there's a remnant in Gaza, but the IDF is pulling off. They are leaving one battalion. They need to regroup. It's been 4 months of war, 184 days or whatever. So, meanwhile, Iran is threatening. We could be looking at this whole thing escalating in ways that may be prophetic. So I want your thoughts on that, because in my opinion, why the eclipse, as you said, is interesting, and we can, pinpoint something or try to find out something. In my opinion, the place to watch is the Middle East and centered on Israel. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think you nailed it, LA, because, as Americans, we're very American-centric. And, we got Graham in the back from England, and he, as we're talking, he reminds us of how there are other parts of the world that exist besides America.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's right. And so when we look at this X across America, again, we start thinking, well, when Jesus was speaking about these signs, he was talking about America. And again, it's just God is focused on Israel. And even in the Old Testament, it is extremely rare that God, as we know, and he spoke about prophecies, all the nations surrounding Israel. But even when God sent Jonah to Nineveh was a country that certainly came and involved itself with Israel. So you have prophecies against Edom and Esau and Egypt and Nineveh and Assyria, all these other ones. But the fact of the matter is the focus of prophecy is not, it doesn't touch on America.
It doesn't. We're not even mentioned. Yeah.
It focuses on Israel. And so what we're seeing now is, in my mind, the most important thing of watching these things develop. Because why? Even Russia being in Ukraine, and now Russia, of course, increasing its presence in Syria.
Yeah.
Well, that has everything to do with Israel. Why? Well, because of Ezekiel 38.
Exactly.
So the players are lining up, and we know they've been lining up for many years now, but they're lining up now together more than ever before. So the precipitations of Turkey, Russia, and Iran together, and the potentials for what we're watching for Iran's response to the killing of these 7 upper class generals stuff is, could it escalate? Will it escalate? And will it turn into something? That really is the key, because we know we have a prophesied war in the Bible that we're waiting for it to happen. So it's wise to watch that, because Israel is going to be continually abandoned, and we're watching that happen with our current administration. They're going to be isolated, and they're going to be desperate, and that's when God shows up for them.
Well said. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I hope you get back to us later in the week with a report what the eclipse looked like. I mean, I find that, the fact that all the planets are lining up, that in itself is pretty amazing. But we've seen this before, and this is why cool heads need to prevail. In my opinion, the place to watch is Israel. Mondo, thanks so much for coming on the record. Drive safe. Great to see you again, Brad. Nice to meet you, Graham. God bless you guys, and really appreciate you coming on. Hey folks, I have a special announcement. We just opened up a new website. It's called RoswellRevisited.com. RoswellRevisited.com. I want to thank Chauncey Green for getting that set up for it. Please go there and check it out. We've got a deal for you. We really do. Both of these incredible DVDs. This is real investigative journalism. RoswellRevisited.com. Go check it out now. And we've got a special deal for both of these two DVDs. And I think you'll find it interesting. By the way, when you guys buy the DVDs from us or watch on our streaming station, you help keep the lights on here and keep us moving the ball further down the court. UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. RoswellRevisited.com, RoswellRevisited.com. And before I go, I want to give a shout out to Gil Zimmerman, because Gil and I worked on this film, and I think it's the best two films we've ever created in our entire time together and in the entire UFO film series. 9 and 10 will be coming out very shortly. More about that soon. Meantime, RoswellRevisited.com. Thanks so much.
One of the most overused sayings in the past 2 years has been, "I feel like I just entered the Twilight Zone." And for many, that's as close as you can come to understand their experience, due to the events that unfolded and continue to unfold each day. Now we have tens of thousands of truckers protesting in Canada, which are expected to bleed over to the U.S. as their success in stopping deliveries continues. Well, this pressure caused the hopeful outcome of eliminating the draconian mandates of masks, vaccines, and passports that are being enforced by the government and their corporate puppets of the New World Order. Will it put an end to the deceit and lies of these evil overseers once and for all? I sure hope so. Because if not, the elite could be another 10 steps ahead with psyops to cause the predicted food shortages, which in return would demonize a group trying to do the right thing. Is this intentional chaos for order, so they could bring a worldwide crisis to a head, where citizens fight against one another and they eventually promote cries for help along with the justification for martial law, as it appears out of the chaos to finally bring in the order, the promised one world order? Well, it would be nice to know the future, and perhaps we will find out sooner than we would like, since the lines have been drawn and the point of no return, I believe, has been crossed. This evil has been able to grow by false flagging humanity right into this point in time. Could this be over our heads? Is it inevitable that we go down this road of collective destruction and pain based on the evidence of a full spectrum dominance plan by what possibly looks like a subversive extraterrestrial agenda? Well, if so, our understanding and connection to God seems to be more paramount, in my opinion, than ever before. Not just as to navigate through a worldwide level of deceit and lies, but to understand this greater reality that appears to be directly influencing our human experience here in this three-dimensional Earth. So how do we define this greater reality? Are we even able to with the limited science that we only know about in our five-sensory world? Well, many humans have gotten a glimpse of a world not related to ours, which has been thoroughly documented throughout history, like what? Ghosts, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and even interactions with extraterrestrials, for example. It sounds strange, but almost everyone has had some type of paranormal experience. However, as society, we don't dare define it as such, at least not on a mainstream level. So do we live in a multi-dimensional world or universe? If so, what does it even mean? Are there multi-dimensional beings? Would that mean we are as well? And if this is all part of God's plan for us to awaken to the truth? Well, we will be welcoming back conscious healer and metaphysician Dr. Ursula Lentini to discuss what multidimensional living looks like. We also have Pastor Dave Bryan joining us to discuss how religion and spirituality coincide with a multidimensional belief system. Now, you thought things couldn't get any more out of this world. Well, you have officially stepped into the Twilight Zone. Welcome to Frequency Wars, the next revolution.
The time to defy the modern agenda is now. UI Media Network presents Frequency Wars, an explosive new series that examines contentious subject matter pursuing us beyond our five senses. This weekly series discovers the intricacies of imposing issues that challenge our daily existence and question humanity. Provocative and intriguing, we confront the issues and conflicts affecting us on a global scale and beyond. The commentary and guests will shift the paradigm and defy the status quo. What will you believe? Welcome to Frequency Wars, the next revolution. And here's your host, challenging you to question everything, Tim Ray.
Hello, I'm your host, Tim Ray, and welcome to Frequency Wars. Recently, we've been discussing not only the ET's agenda, but also the nature of reality, which is made up of energy and frequency, as well as how we are able to manipulate energy and matter with our intentions. Even with that knowledge, as we delve into reality beyond our five senses, defining those experiences remains the ultimate challenge. What do we have to compare it to? What is our reference point? We are potentially talking about having another dimensional experience to try to comprehend, define, and process with what we see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. Historically, it looks like we have been defining these experiences after all, but just for a handful of people and for covert reasons, which may not be in the best interest of all. Take remote viewing, for example. As we discussed this on our past show, The Agenda Beyond, remote viewing was a governmental sanctioned operation just recently declassified.
But offstage, Geller had also caught the eye of the intelligence community. And this is where it got very interesting, because scientists would consider, wait a minute, maybe we can read the minds of other government officials. Maybe we can see inside a nuclear facility in Russia. It sounds incredible, but it's true. Relying on now declassified documents, National Security reporter Annie Jacobson has written about the U.S. government's decades-long attempts to use Uri Geller and others like him for psychic espionage. And there is a declassified report that talks about the Pentagon's real fear, citing Uri Geller by name, that if he was able to bend metal with his mind, he might be able to use his mind to interfere with the delicate electronic system on a nuclear-tipped ICBM. In the 1980s, the Defense Intelligence Agency began Project Stargate.
It was top secret, actually beyond top secret.
Dean Radin, a scientist, worked on the program that employed about a dozen psychics and mediums. For what?
For espionage.
Well, isn't that interesting? Psychic espionage, spying via projecting consciousness within our own dimension. Can only some of us remote view, or can all of us learn to do that? How do we know? If it's being kept secret, wouldn't you like to know? So what else has society been exposed to regarding the reality beyond, yet perhaps too hesitant to explore further?
My name is Raymond Moody, and I'm a former philosophy professor and medical doctor, forensic psychiatrist. And since 1962, I have been studying cases of people who almost died and returned and had what we today call near-death experiences. I think the most important thing I've learned in my studies is that whatever we happen to be chasing in life, whether knowledge or power or fame or whatever, that the most important thing we can do while we're alive is to learn how to love. And I've also learned that there's nothing to fear in death. Really, it's a transition into some other world. And I've also learned that these experiences seem the same all over the world, wherever I've traveled. I hear the same things from people. I've also learned that at the point of death, we get to engage in a fascinating holographic panoramic review, during which we review all the things we've ever done while we're alive from the point of view of those with whom we've interacted. People say that with review of their life, they often review their lives in the company of a being of light and of complete love and compassion, who sees everything you've ever done in this panorama of your life and yet still loves you.
Near-death experiences, explained by the world-renowned Dr. Raymond Moody. Think of the data gathered in his lifetime of work alone, and how it could help with explaining and defining other dimensions in the process of a panoramic review of which each of us experience here on Earth. If that is to be true, could it be helpful for humanity to know so we can evolve further? Would we have as many atheists today? So what happens during a near-death experience? Well, research shares many uncanny common experiences, yet each being uniquely personal. In the case of one of the most famous near-death experiences was by Daniel Brinkley, who was struck by lightning and was pronounced dead for just under 30 minutes. His best-selling book, Saved by the Light, goes into details of his experiences with beings not from this world.
There was a building that was literally built of light. It was like it was made of glass and plexiglass brick, with each had its own energy form and its own nucleus, and it radiated. And the energy that it produced was far greater than the building itself. And as I would watch this, these 12 beings appeared, then the 13th. Then each being would be delegated, like the 13th being would delegate the being. And then this being would begin to radiate. And it would radiate beautiful pastels, colors I have never seen yet on this earth. Never seen them. And it would go and radiate outward. And then it was all that was in the hall. It was all that was there. Then it started back. And as it came, it created an energy form here. And it would send out what appeared to me to be a box. I mean, that's the only way I could describe it. And as the box came, it opened. And as I looked down in this box, I could see like a small screen television. But as this came, I passed into it, and I was literally standing there. I was a part of watching things going on, and burning and fire and bombs and explosions and advances in medicine and science and world events. And I really didn't know it was the future. And as I finished seeing these 12 boxes, there came the 13th box. And this being who was literally running everything told me that I would have to go back. And this is what, since I had seen the future events, that I would have to go back. And they wanted me to design this program, which is the most ridiculous thing I'd ever, I'm listening to this, and I'm still Daniel. I'm not completely evolved into a spiritual being. I'm still checking all this out. And it said I had to go back and to prepare this program of what they call the centers, to help people center. And I'm asking why. They said the reality that people have based their faith on, we have a faith-based reality, and that it would soon crumble. Science, religion, governments, institutions would pass away. And we had to have a belief system to build our faith on instead of a faith system that we built our beliefs on.
His experience is very specific and detailed to the point of coming back to life with psychic skills, which is another similar experience with NDEs. It put him also on a life mission to this day. But notice where he claims he was and who he was interacting with. This place, we can safely say, was not here on Earth, but on another dimension, perhaps. And these beings he communicated with, we could safely say, weren't from this dimension. Does that mean that people who have had NDEs are multidimensional beings and have been somewhere in another dimension? Is it safe to say that multiple dimensions exist? And do we have to die in order to travel to them? Well, we may be surprised with how traveling to other dimensions may be more common than we have realized.
What is an out-of-the-body experience? What is it? Well, it's best described as a state of consciousness awareness that does not depend on physical sensory input, meaning it is acting separate and apart from your physical body. Recent studies indicated that 25% of the population in the United States remembers having at least one spontaneous out-of-body experience. There's been a lot of scientific discussion as to what that is, and our religions have given it a name too. But basically, you are able to exercise facsimiles is the best word, of the sensory input that you have in the physical sense, in the physical continuity, as it were. So if you can think of that you are perceiving and separate and apart from this physical mechanism that provides you with this input, you're able to see, for example, and you're able to hear. That out-of-body consciousness, as it were, is able to be, let's say, 2 inches away from the physical, or if you want to put it at the extreme, you can go to Mars and cruise around Mars and see what's going on there. It's that unlimited.
It would have been nice to learn we could have traveled to Mars or other dimensions safely as a kid by remote viewing. Just save some gas money over the years, huh? But seriously, listen to the stories of out-of-body experiences. Millions describe them as having their consciousness travel or astral project to other dimensions and also interact consciously with other dimensional beings. The Monroe Institute documents many of these OBE experiences as well as experiments with them. How common is it? What are the rules? Is it safe? Can you go back into your body each time? Is this a demonic experience, or have many called it that because it's just unknown? The answers to these questions and more can help us, at the minimum, to define the multidimensional experiences. So we discuss just a few paranormal experiences most humans have, which are not grounded in this dimension. Even still, it's a challenge to wrap our minds around this multidimensional beings ourselves. So who better to help explain that than metaphysician, reverend, and subconscious healer, Dr. Ursula Latini. And joining us again is Dr. Ursula Latini. Welcome, doctor. Welcome back.
Thank you. I love being here. I love the deep conversations we're having. I can't wait to get started.
All right. Well, as you know, we've been talking about multidimensional beings and multidimensions and trying to introduce that, which is sad that we shouldn't have to introduce that to our society because certain aspects of our society understands multidimensional aspects of things. And then other parts of our society, a majority of our society, has no idea what that means. It almost seems demonic in many ways, right? So it's sad that we haven't had a school system doing this, but if you had to define what a multidimensional being is, how would you even start? Where would you even start?
I'll just give my little personal example of that. I'm a spiritual person. I've been a spiritual person my whole life. As a kid, because that wasn't promoted or understood, I was not understood even by my own father. So when I say multi-dimension, what's a dimension? What does that mean? This dimension is 3D. I'm in a physical space. You could almost say our emotional understanding and access would be another dimension of who we are. Okay, so I'm a physical being, I'm a mental being, and I'm an emotional being. All three are living in this unit of energy, but you can say, I have emotions. Oh yeah, my emotions and my physical, they seem different and separate. I could see where there's an emotional part of me. I could see where there's a mental part of me. I could see where there's a physical part of me. Those are dimensions within one person. Me, for instance, when I was a child, I was on this physical plane. I was on an energetic awareness plane. I was on an empathic plane, so I have the ability to feel other people's feelings. So if my mom came in and she was frustrated and upset, she didn't say anything, I could still feel she was frustrated and upset. So that's called an empathic, an energetic connection. So that's even another dimension. You see, I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still in my body. I'm still in the room, but there's another dimension. And then I have the capacity where my awareness, my energy goes to another place even higher than this, which is like a state of prayer or a state of meditation, which is beyond the mental capacity. So I could go visit and have a heavenly experience and peace and harmony and then drop back down, but I won't have words to go with it because my brain can't even comprehend what happens there.
You talking about dreaming, doctor?
No, I'm not talking about dreaming. I'm talking about prayer meditation, the space of prayer meditation.
Like in theta brain activity.
That's right. So talk about the brain activities because those are actually different dimensions as well.
Okay, well, see, that's a lot of people know the alpha, theta, delta, and all that. But you're saying those are actual different dimensional experiences, because I do understand how a child, a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old, stays in theta majority of that time period. And so, if anything happens in a beta state or an alpha or even a delta state, it's not part of their reality, right?
Right.
So when they're shifting to another brain level activity, you're saying that's a dimensional shift.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that makes it more, because, we have this languaging, like, multidimensional, look at these crackpots, what are they even saying, right?
Yeah.
But if we say, no, it's similar to brainwave states, then they're like, Oh, that makes sense. So we want to bring all of this high information down to a practical level because, in the end of the day, who cares? Who cares? Because you can actually move up and down these brainwave states. You can move into another level of dimension. They say dementia, right? Oh, that person has dementia. That's a state of beingness,
right?
Where they're not connected,
right?
Right? So now we're talking about states of beingness. Somebody can get high on drugs and they're having a different dimensional experience. Some people take psychedelics and they see sacred geometry.
Right.
Like, how did they get there? Okay, it's drug induced, but does that place and time exist when people all over the world are having that same kind of experience? It must be a state. So we want to put everything in time and space because that's the reality that we've been taught. Right? When you say it's a shame that we even have to have this conversation. I had just conversation yesterday where people are going to be like, oh, in 30 years from now, they're going to be like, can you even believe that people sat in class and tried to learn that they're God or that they didn't know that they were God, right? Because I think in the future, we're going to be so in tuned and aligned with that which created us that we're going to see that this is just an expression. Like, this is the outfit that I'm wearing in this lifetime. And it's going to be that simple because right now we're moving from this is my reality into everything else doesn't exist. And we're flipping it saying, no, everything else exists. And this is your physical expression of it in this lifetime.
And that we are of God, meaning that we didn't realize we are of God because we were just taught different things and very fear-based things. So, but with this different dimensional state of being, as you're saying, whether it's drug-induced or another state of mind, is it in line with the dimensional understanding of like when somebody has a near-death experience and they go to, let's say, heaven, and it's not in the clouds anywhere. It's not in our physical time and space here. It's in another dimension. So is that a higher degree of this dimension?
Yes. Okay. Yes, you're getting. Yes, exactly.
Or hell?
So now,
could hell be a lower sense of dimension?
Absolutely. So it's a state. So we can say instead of dimension, and if that word is too out there for people, they can say it's a state of experience, if you will. It's a state of mind, but then what's mind? Okay, so it's a state of experience, a state of beingness would be the accurate way to be. You can say emotions. So I'm in the dimension of anger, right? Because when you're in anger, you're saturated in anger. That is a reality right there. You can say it has these kinds of things that go with it. The temperature rises, the voice volume rises. Like there's a certain identification of anger. There's a certain identification of peace. Okay, why can't we say there's a dimension of anger, a dimension of peace, a dimension of love, a dimension of prayer, a dimension of meditation? So now we're just kind of moving up and down these experiences, but you can say they're different dimensions. People who lose their mind, they're off in some other place.
Right.
But there's no physical place. So let's talk about 3D, 4D, 5D, because that's a very, like, what the heck is that stuff?
We hear that all the time. Yes, let's go there.
Right, we don't understand it. So the elementary version is 3D is time and space. And, it sounds so esoteric, but no, it's actually very simple. 3D is measurable by this way and that way, east and west, up and down, north and south, and back and forward, depth. The intersections of those will put you into a time and a space. Right. So 5 years old on the front porch. Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So that's a reference point. It's a key. It's an anchor. It's a position on the quantum field. You can look at it. You can take a picture of it. It's very solid.
Right.
4D is just time. So 3D, between those three measurements, time is an intersection. It's the diagonal if you're looking at a math equation. Okay. Because time and space puts you at that point, 5 years old, front porch, right? So that's 5 years old is time, front porch is location. Location, the address and the GPS system, and there it is. So when we're a baby, we're aware of space first, and then we're taught time. Okay, it's morning, it's night, time to go to bed, time to be quiet,
That's still 3D, not 4D, you're saying.
Yes, but in the 3D, in a baby's understanding, 3D, if you can, this is how I think of it. When a baby first comes into awareness of what the heck's going on around here, they're aware of their space first. And as they age and experience, then they're taught time. I think time is completely created, it's man-made. And I think it's probably a lot of it's wrong. And then the fourth dimension is only time. I think of it as a line because often when time is depicted, they show a timeline.
Okay.
So what do you do with time? You look at it, what do you do with time? But so time is one of those things. The fourth dimension, people don't even talk about the fourth dimension. I didn't even know what the fourth dimension was because everybody's talking about the fifth dimension in my education.
Right.
So then they talk about time, and I'm like, oh, no wonder they skipped about time. It's just this line.
So there's no space. It's just time. So
That's right.
You're floating in the. You're floating. Let me ask you a question. Would a ghost, let's say, a paranormal experience, somebody who's an unbounded spirit who perhaps just has a traumatic death and they're floating around and they're haunting at a house, would that be a fourth dimensional experience?
Yes, because they're lost in time. A lot of ghosts, the death happens suddenly.
It seems like yesterday to them, right?
They're locked in time because very often you'll hear the ghost story it's 11 o'clock, listen for the footsteps, right?
Yeah.
Because that ghost quickly got killed. That person got killed quickly. Their brain kind of couldn't track that they got killed. The funeral was there. They're looking at 11 o'clock when they got killed. They walked the stairs, and they're in this time loop.
Right.
Time loop. So sometimes we'll get in a lock, right? And we'll just like that thing, the time that person hurt my feelings, and then you review it, and you review it, and you review it, and you can't get out of that obsessive thought. You're stuck in the fourth dimension in that lock of time.
Wow.
Okay, so time to me is like a line, but in my meditation this came to me, what if the time opened up and you could slide through time? So to me, Kermit the Frog, it's just a line in his face, right? So it's just a line, and then he opens his mouth and information comes out, love comes out, kindness comes out, wisdom comes out, and then he closes his mouth and it goes away. So if you have this timeline of fourth dimension and you just kind of let go in your meditations, you can slip through that slot, it'll close behind you, and now time is not a lock. Now you're going beyond time. In my subconscious work that I do with my clients, I work in the fifth dimension. And the three dimension is space, time. Fourth dimension is time. Fifth dimension is time, space.
Okay, so you lost me there. So third dimension is space and time, and fifth dimension is time and space, meaning what? What's it's the same word?
Good.
The order's different.
Right. So you see how there's kind of a natural progression.
Yes.
Space, time, space.
Okay. All right.
So what is time, space, and how does that work? Now I can, in the fifth dimension, in the work I do, I can go up and down time and land space. Then you have time, and then the fifth dimension in my work, we can travel the timeline. So my client can say, oh, this memory came back when I was 5 years old. And I can say, okay. And we can fly around in the fifth dimension through time and land in a space. Front porch. Okay. Now we can actually go back there energetically through the memory, but also through the feelings, and land as an adult on the porch with the 5-year-old back into space and time.
Okay, I have to stop you there for a second. So I want to clarify, make sure I understand what you're saying. So in the fifth dimension, time seems to be the conduit of control in the fifth dimension, not space. Where in the three-dimensional world, I cannot, I'm here in the studio, I cannot just put myself over at my home, which is hundreds of miles away, or whatever it may be. I can put myself there because I have to go from space to space to space. But in the fifth dimension, time is the conduit, and in the third dimension, space is the conduit for interactions for multiple beings, multiple dimensional beings such as ourselves.
Exactly.
And so time, you can manipulate your space is irrelevant, or it's there, but it's not linear, I guess is the word.
Right. So rephrasing what you just said is space on the 3-dimension, space rules, right? Space trumps. Rock, paper, scissors, space is the winner.
Yes.
And on the 5th dimension, time has more power over space.
Okay, for example, unbound spirits perhaps are caught in the 4th dimension, but what would be an example of what we see, whether we hear stories of what happens in the 5th dimension? Would this be what? What would be an example of what we would see or hear about people's experiences in the 5th dimension?
Astral travel.
Astral travel, okay. Near-death experiences?
Totally.
Oh, out-of-body experiences.
Yes.
That's why you can travel anywhere. Remote viewing, like we talked about the CIA remote viewing, that would be a fifth experience.
That's right.
Okay.
Because location is not the reference. It's not the primary.
Right.
We let go of location. It's like we don't have gravity anymore. Gravity's not in control of us in the 5th dimension. So we can run around through time to get us in other places and other dimensions.
Okay, so this is so powerful what you're saying, Doctor, but I have to clarify here too, is that, so if I'm able to dimensionally shift just within the mental, physical, and emotional part of just being a human in the 3-dimensional world, or near-death experiences, or ghost in the 4th dimension, or out-of-body experience, astral travel in the 5th dimension, I would have to be a multi-dimensional being, otherwise I couldn't have those experiences, right?
Absolutely.
So what makes me a multi-dimensional being then? Just the fact that I can have those dimensional experiences, or is there some key or some common thread that allows me to be a multi-dimensional being? Is that our soul or spirit? What is the common thread?
In the Bible, Jesus said, "These works and greater you can do." He woke people up from the dead, okay? And he said we can do things greater than that. Why? Because he had access to these dimensions. He understood the energy, he understood wave particle, he understood frequency, and he understood the highest vibration of all, love. So all we have to do is have an understanding. So what we're talking about here is going to give somebody an understanding. Now it's a possibility.
So can you be in the 5th dimension and be evil? Like I do want to talk about, because we discussed on our shows in the past about these negative energies, these negative entities that are, whether they're reptilian-like or whatever that people are defining them as, but that are that affect us in the 3-dimensional world, but we can't see them, smell them, or at least most people cannot. We can't use our 5 senses to figure that out. It's a thought, it's an addiction, it's whatever. So what dimension, if this is true, that these negative entities that are feeding off on us, whatever people say, what dimension are they in while we're in the 3rd dimension?
Great question. They can be in all the same ones we are.
Huh.
We know they're on the 3D. A robber, right? A murderer. He's on my same dimension.
Right.
I have nothing to do with him. I don't like him. I don't think like him. I don't feel like him. I don't have the things that drive him. But he's still on my frequency here. Same with 4. Level 4. He can go in time, and he can also manipulate in the 50, 6, 70.
Okay, so throughout you're saying that we'll get into 6 and 7, but throughout these different dimensions, it doesn't matter if you're negative or positive, or good or evil. They're multi-dimensional beings too, if they could travel in these different things as well.
Yep.
But it seems like they're hiding in another dimension while we're in the 3rd dimension because they're able to manipulate us better, easier.
Well, they're probably in 7th dimension, which is more of a creative place. So, you know, when you say, oh, you manifest $1 million or the Ferrari or whatever, you don't manifest them on the 3D.
All right.
You manifest them on the 5D in the space of possibilities, but you really create them on the 7D, which is where we play with the Legos. What's that video called? Minecraft?
Yeah, Minecraft.
Okay, 7D is like Minecraft, where you create things. That's where we can set our intentions, and then bang, you know, it manifests so quickly.
Okay. All right. So let's go back. I didn't mean to take you off of the dimension.
That's okay. But I'm answering your question, saying where do these dark entities live? They live on all of them. How can they control us? They can control us from any dimension, especially the 7th dimension. Except the higher you go, the cleaner you have to be. Because darkness has a low vibration, and it's harder for them to go to 7D. So they can even go, like, I don't know what happened to 1D and 2D. People don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so their frequency is low, manipulative, power over. Love is not power over. Love is abundance, flowing over, right? It wants to give. It's generous, the nature of love. The qualities that we're talking about, good, kindness, good and loving, you know, the things that you talk about, the things that you promote, the things that you're teaching from your platform is love, kindness, consideration, generosity, these kinds of qualities, values that we're putting out into the world, because this darkness is trying to take over, but I think there's so much light going on in today's world that it's shining and the darkness is being exposed. And that's why we're like, oh, yuck, where did that come from? It's always been there, but it's been hidden and been covert. So I think we're in a cycle of the age of Aquarius, of the divine feminine rising, of being more in touch with our emotions. And I think that's what's causing this darkness to surface. And we're all like, oh, God forbid, you know, like, what the hell is that? And right. Yeah. No, horrible things, right? The child sex trafficking, like horrible things are coming to light now. And I think it's because we're rising. We're going through a cycle of rising consciousness. So we're looking at that darkness in the news and so on, but we also have to look at the darkness within us. Right. So as we clear this darkness within us, we're also clearing it generationally, mother's side is family, father's side is family, past lives. And as we clear within ourselves, we're going up, we're easier to go up and down these dimensions and these different emotional dimensions and brain frequencies.
Okay. So brilliant. This is just brilliant information. Now, the 6th dimension, the 7th dimension, I don't want to we don't have enough time to go through every dimension, but how many dimensions are there, and how do you know that these dimensions exist?
Right. We only know them because this human thing is based on experiences. Like, we think it's all thought. No, it's not thought. It's really our experience. Because if you have an experience, that's real for you. That's more real for you than some theory. People have said it just goes on and on and on. Because 3D is our primary reference right now, we're only going to be able to elevate to the ability that we can break down and have different experiences in these different dimensions. Look, we can't even get 3D right? So it doesn't. We're not going to run away in 5D and it's going to have all the answers. It's just having a reference that we're not locked into 3D, and then we can move to 5D and create something better. I think personally that the light has already won, and that's why the darkness is emerging, so it can be cleared out, and then we can have more peace on Earth.
All right, well, I think that may be true. It may be true, it may not be true. I mean, I understand your belief on that, but before I don't want to get to the end of the story here first. Okay, I want to go back to two things. One, I want to talk about religions, all religions. Most religions, organized religions do not teach these different dimensional states of being, or that we are multidimensional beings, at least not overtly.
They would not say that language, that's for sure.
So it seems like religions in general, and I don't care if whatever religion, unless it's some type of new age religion, but religions in general are keeping us ignorant of the fact, if this is to be true, ignorant of the fact that we are multidimensional beings, and we actually are able to travel in different multi-dimensions based on our the continuum of fear versus love, right?
Yes.
So that seems to be a obstacle for me.
It is, but we have to, like, when we look at religion and try to compare it and understand it, we have to look at the essence, the value of the religion. I think people had awarenesses, but they were all over the place, and there was no structure. So then a great teacher came along and said, look, here's some ideas, here's some structure, here's some direction. And then you give it to the commoners, and then they do crazy things with it, and they're not following the rules. So then the smarter guys come and they say, well, let's organize this so everybody can stay on track, and I'll be in charge. so then they feel like in the Christian church, the model is the priest holds all the value, and the commoners come to the priest, and the priest will be the conduit of the divine energy coming through. And that's like a parenting model, right? I will parent you. You guys don't know what you're doing. But then the problem is the darkness and the corruption comes in, and the parent takes power over the people. So they're not teaching the people. They're not shepherding the people. They're, controlling the people.
Well, the same thing with the Babylonians and the Satanists. They get access to this information, I guess, this multidimensional understanding, and then they just use it for evil. They use it for manipulating, hurting, and do thy will. They do it for their own selfish interests rather than what? Use it for what?
Say the guy who started the religions, right? Jesus didn't start Christianity. He just gave the teachings, and the guys after him said, okay, everyone's losing it. Like, let's organize.
Yeah, well, he said, I did not come here to create a religion, but I came here to fulfill prophecy. And, of course, what do? We created a religion around Christianity, of course.
Same with Buddhism.
Yeah.
Buddha's like, please don't do that. A lot of the other religions were like, no. But what happens is that person has power, one of the qualities of the divine energy, love, intelligence, and power. If you give something too much power, darkness itself will creep in there and take over. So it's not like that guy came in with bad intentions. Power was the conduit for darkness to come in and manipulate the system. So I was very angry at the church when I started waking up to the ways and systems. But through my spiritual understanding, I was like, oh, it's not man-made. Power corrupts, and they didn't have enough checks and balances in there. So the negative energy took over him, whether it's his own or, some kind of influence came in and started corrupting the system, because power is very dangerous. You don't give a child a bunch of power because they have an immaturity. They can't handle it all.
All right. So that makes complete sense to me, what you're saying. And now for the average person, whether they're been caught up into the religious dogma and the loophole of that, or if they're just new to hearing this information, that they are actually a multi-dimensional being that could shift in different dimensions based on, I assume, their intentions and their thoughts, right, and their emotional mindset. So what's your advice? How can people now, from this point on, start living a multi-dimensional life?
It's subtle. Okay, so this 3D is very noisy, very concrete, very dense. The different ways that we can move about these things is through subtle energy. It's subtle. So beauty, for instance.
This energy you're talking about is like what people refer to as God energy.
Yes, okay. God or awareness, right? So if I'm sitting here and no one's here and I'm just being quiet, instead of distracting myself with physical things or, the internet or whatever, and I just say, okay, I'm just going to focus on my breath. Like, I don't know what that is. So I just focus on my breath. Now everything, my awareness is concentrated into the subtle. I'm breathing all day long, but until I get rid of all these distractions, am I going to focus here? So within the breath, I can slip into beta, theta, alpha, delta. Just by focusing on the breath and quieting the mind and just stilling out all the nerves and the emotions. So my five sensory things, if I can shut those all down and move into the subtle, now I can start moving along the lines of dimensional awareness, brain waves, emotional states, create more space, because then peace comes in, move all the particles out of that understanding or experience, so there's more wave, there's more space. So I'm making things less dense. 3D is dense, so I want things less dense. I want to declutter my house. I want to eat less food. I want to, less stimulation. And then I can start moving into frequency. People paying more attention to their dreams, writing down their dreams. That's access to another consciousness.
The dimension or consciousness.
And it's awareness. So if I'm going on a walk in the woods and all of a sudden I think I see a ghost, and my mind wants to dismiss it because ghosts aren't real. I never was taught with ghosts. Instead of dismissing it, I'll say, wait a minute, wonder what that was. And I become curious, then more things can come in. But we also want to be protective, because since darkness runs on the same frequencies that light does, I want to say for my highest and good. So if I'm moving into I'm going to play with this Ouija board, highest and good. Or I'm going to read this book about demology just to understand it. Oh, well, I want to look at it from a highest and good perception. I would not recommend it because it's coded and it will come. So I stay away from all dark. I don't watch horror movies. I don't listen to rap music. All dark things, I don't want any business, because there is a lot of manipulation within that stuff, and I don't succumb to it.
So what you're saying, Doctor, and I think it's brilliant, is start out with breathing to connect yourself to yourself, and then use that as your guide for awareness. And as you increase your frequency of awareness through, I assume, the love frequency, the love vibration, you could bypass whatever darkness and evil things that are out there that it may try to pull you down, and continue with that intention and awareness. I think it's brilliant that you start with breath and breathing, and how we all started life with breathing. But Doctor, I want to thank you for coming in and explaining this multidimensional, faceted topic for this multidimensional conversation. It's brilliant. Once again, I appreciate everything you're doing, and everything that you're sharing now with humanity. And now's the time for people to just breathe and become aware. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you very, very much. Bless you. Thank you.
God-given curiosity. Is that a curse or a beautiful attribute to have as a human? Seems most could use a dose of that these days. Can curiosity be dangerous or even harmful, not only to our body, but perhaps also to our soul? Or could it bring us to a higher level of knowledge and wisdom, maybe even love, if we are able to interact with loving multiple dimensional beings? Just take Esther Hicks, for example, who claims to channel an entity called Abraham. Is that possible to channel another multidimensional being and occupy the same physical body? Well, take a look at what Abraham Hicks has to say about channeling through Esther's body.
And are you refreshed? Good. Now what? We're going to have a very good time today. Stan, did you think it's you?
If you would have told me that I'd be here 5 years ago, it's totally impossible.
You should hear the way Esther tells the story.
I totally agree with everything that you teach. And it's really changing my life. And I don't know if this is a question or a comment. I just don't get the whole channeling thing.
It's a good thing that you don't, in this sense. We don't want it to be something so unusual either, because the fact is, everyone who you see around you is an extension of source energy. And everyone has access to this broader knowing. In fact, through the years, as our way of explaining who we are and who you are and how it all blends together has evolved. This analogy that we offer about this vortex, this vibrational place isn't even the right word, vibrational state of being, where if you tend to your vibration, then you enter the vortex and you become one with what's there. That's the best definition of channeling that anyone could ever give.
Kind of questionable and creepy at the same time, seeing someone supposedly channel a non-human entity within their own body. Nonetheless, many report this level of communication with entities around the world. Abraham describes channeling as a stepping into a vortex of God's source and then connecting with those beings, hopefully sharing love and light. If all of this is possible, what happens when one steps into a vortex and finds out all is not love and light? Can channeling go wrong? Very wrong.
There is a war that's being waged between good and evil. Faith in God will lead us in one direction. The lack of faith will lead us in another. I have seen many manifestations of evil, and exorcism is the only cure for one who is truly demonically possessed. I'm Father Vincent Lampert. I've been a Catholic priest for the past 25 years. I was appointed by my Archbishop to be the exorcist for Indianapolis. It was not a position that I sought, but in 2005, the Archbishop selected me for the role. He told me that he wanted a priest who believed in the reality of evil, but not one who would be so gullible to believe that everybody who came to him was actually up against the forces of evil.
Is exorcism another word for channeling, but with evil beings? Is there a rule that having faith in God or lack thereof is the main factor in whether you channel an angelic being or allow an evil spirit to take over your body? Most religions share how dangerous it is to allow yourself to be curious about what happens beyond this reality. Have you heard of casually playing with a Ouija board or asking to speak to energies not here on Earth anymore? Again, is it well documented that these experiences can be filled with demons, deceit, lies, and things not of love? Can you lose your soul, your energetic essence, if you allow yourself to go there unprotected?
Anneliese Michel was a German woman who underwent Catholic exorcism rites during the year before her death. By the time she was 20, she had become intolerant of various religious objects and began to hear voices. She was dead on the 1st of July 1976 at the age of 23, and her body was injured by 67 exorcism rituals over a period of just 10 months. When Michelle was 16, she experienced a seizure and was diagnosed with psychosis, and that was the time she realized that she was possessed with demons.
Eerie. The movie Exorcism of Emily Rose is based on these true events. How well informed must you be before communicating with multidimensional beings? How bad can the experience go if you're not protected in at least the faith of God? But let's see what channeling or being possessed by demonic entities can look like. This footage is based on actual recordings and pictures of what Annalise Michel went through. We can only show you a few of these entities that supposedly possessed her for time's sake. Your discretion is advised.
Ja, ich fühle auch für die anderen Leute, damit die nicht in die Hölle kommen und so. Aber dass das dann so schlimm ist und so grausam und so furchtbar, nee.
terrifying for most and seems the stakes are at the highest when stepping outside our dimension and interacting with unknown multidimensional beings. You think we need to know the parameters and universal rules of the realities beyond before our curiosity gets the best of us? If it can end up anything like what we just saw, I would say absolutely yes. Sign me up for that class. Does it boil down to how we protect ourselves spiritually to prepare for a reality of beauty or just down-out horrific experiences? So how do we find this protection if we are meant to explore beyond this three-dimensional world? Will we have a choice? Are evil beings already here? Are they behind this vaccine and the New World Order agenda? Does this explain why we see so many humans in lock and step in the power positions? Because they are that fearful of what will happen to them if they don't follow through with Agenda 2130, a depopulation and control plan? Or are many of them on board with it and even possessed themselves by these evil multidimensional beings? It sure seems to be possible when you take a deep dive into this demonic aspects and evil in society today. Just look at the modern day information shared about the Podesta brothers, the Clintons, the entertainment industry, and the politics of the New World Order Luciferian agenda. The evil seems to be showing itself. Look how Hollywood has glorified this darkness in the past to get to this point today. There has been many notorious evil men, such as Aleister Crowley and so many more, yet glorified the most by Hollywood is Anton LaVey, who is the founder of the Church of Satan. Look at all the lives he destroyed that were unfortunate enough to cross his path.
There's Jane Mansfield. She had a very short career, and she got killed in a very bad way.
She needed to be noticed. That was like a junkie needs drugs. She had to have publicity.
Anton liked publicity too. Well, they were a perfect pair.
The founder and high priest of the First Church of Satan, Anton Szandor LaVey.
And in the 1960s, he's gaining a lot of notoriety.
Stranger, do we have anything to talk about?
She's always liked that dark side of things. Her whole life became chaos and drug use and child neglect.
Well, I'm sure they had an affair, which it would be unnatural if they didn't.
You're going to be a sinner, be the best sinner on the block. You're going to do something that's naughty, do it.
God, is it time we wake up to this evil, dark agenda and the power we have within as mighty, powerful spiritual beings? Well, let me share with you a mighty, powerful spiritual being who's not only a spiritual warrior himself, but also his wife as well. It's reported he has faced some of the highest evils beyond this reality. And I've had the opportunity to get to know him more personally, and I have to say, he's the real deal. But right after this break, let's bring in author, founder of the Church of Glad Tidings and the Freedom Embassy, as well as an international exorcist, Pastor Dave Bryan. Why don't we talk about people who sign contracts with the devil? What's your take at you're seeing how the MK Ultra works, and what's your experience been, Elisa, with the entertainment industry, and why it's important to have people who can be mind controlled in those positions?
This breakdown and overabundance of Illuminati symbology and sigils and information, they're indoctrinating the people who are watching this and following this and become fans. They're not only indoctrinating, they're desensitizing people. It's being shoved in everyone's faces, in every music video and every performance. I mean, really stop and take a look at some of these animated films that Disney's putting out. They are some of the most violent. The word sex was seen in the clouds in, one film. These men and women are extremely well versed. They're magicians of sort. Yeah. They're casting spells and performing rituals to maintain what is at work here. For me and a lot of other MK Ultras that I've talked to, it's like stuff is just out of our reach, and we know it's there, but we couldn't reach out to it. We know there's something we need to do or something we need to say. People who are under this, including myself, you don't really think like other people do. And there are things that are literally sometimes blocked from your thought process. One of the first things that has to happen is we have got to do something for these children. They're still going day in, day out. They're being taken out. They're being killed. They're being raped. It hasn't slowed down. It's just going, business is going on as usual. So anyone that steps up and does something to save those children, if that's happening, that gives me tremendous hope.
Joining us now is Pastor Dave Bryan. Welcome to Freaking Source, Dave.
Thank you, Tim. It's good to be with you.
Well, we're discussing a pretty heavy topic. Human beings, actually, perhaps maybe their true nature, are multidimensional beings and are able to move into different multi-dimensions. And for the average person out there, especially for the average spiritual religious person, it's hard to fathom that aspect. It's because it's not really discussed much. It's not discussed in media. It's not discussed in entertainment. And often, I don't see it being discussed, at least in some of the major religions. Or even overtly in the Bible and Christianity. But I guess my question is, Pastor, is have you directly or indirectly seen anything in the Bible that may defer or allude to that humans could be multidimensional beings, or are there other dimensions that actually exist?
Oh yeah. It depends on which lens you're looking at Scripture through, Tim. But from my point of view, I see it virtually everywhere. The ancient stories of Enoch, who was the seventh from Adam in the Bible, clearly a multidimensional being, who, by the way, is referred to later in his ascended name in the book of Revelation. There's lots of interdimensional expressions, and I think the issue is not whether they're there or not, but whether they are recognized and discussed as they should be. And I think the answer to that is they are not. We live in a really carnal setting in the West, perhaps one of the most rationalistic settings in human history. And so it's not that the occurrences of interdimensional activity are absent from the Bible. It's just that they're not popular to be talked about in this rationalistic culture that we have.
Well, that's a great point you're bringing up, because I concur wholeheartedly with you, because you just don't hear this conversation typically unless you go into other realms of spirituality. And often, not just with Christians, but in many other religions, they're told not to even go there. Hence, it's like exorcism, how even in Catholicism, it's very hush-hush that they actually have done or do exorcisms at times. And you can perhaps find actual exorcists such as yourself, who's perhaps a little bit more open about it. But it seems in the past, it's been very, like you said, not discussed or not allowed to discuss because of what reason? Why do you think it has been suppressed in not only in the different religions or Christianity, but just in general in itself?
Well, again, I think it's rationalism, Tim. Rationalism says if I don't understand it and if I can't explain it scientifically, then it's not real or it has no merit, which is a ridiculous thought. The idea that we can explain the supernatural with natural phrases and definitions is an oxymoron. The whole idea is the other dimensions. We get that we're in this physical dimension. The other dimensions are by definition above and beyond the natural. That's why we call them supernatural. And rationalism has caused the West, who has exported this throughout the world, but it's caused the West to downplay the supernatural as if it has no merit, and to only focus on the natural meanings and the stories of the Bible. But the Bible is a supernatural book from cover to cover, and I've been able to travel the world, and when you get into other cultures, you see that they are very, very oriented to the supernatural realm. And so it's just something that's unique to the West. And I believe at the root of it is this rationalistic concept that we only talk about what we understand and what pertains to natural science.
And this three-dimensional world that we live in, the five senses. Interesting. Because Jesus, as you're referring to the supernatural, if it's all to be true, he did some of his miracles were pretty supernatural, I would say. And would in the Bible does refer at all anywhere that Jesus perhaps was a multidimensional being, or at least perhaps in his actions did it imply he could have been?
Well, both, Tim. He talked frequently about his involvement in both realms. He said, I am the Son of Man on earth, and I'm seated with my Father in heaven. And heaven is more, it's not a geographical concept so much as a different dimension.
So it's not up there in the clouds, you're saying?
Well, I'm saying that both. I'm saying that there is a place that is called the third heaven that's above what we know as space. But the point is that we're supposed to be involved integrally in both the spiritual, the natural realm simultaneously. That's what the whole of the Bible teaches. Jesus was the perfect example of that. And so he ate fish and bread. He also walked on the water, raised the dead, ascended in bodily form. All those things are supernatural. And the problem with the church in America, Tim, is it has, if not outright decrying the supernatural, it has ignored it to the point that we're left with what Bible warns us about, and that's a form of religion that has no supernatural power.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly probably where we are right now, Pastor, is that is, hence we lost the kind of the value, the deeper meaning of perhaps why church exists in the first place and the supernatural aspect of it. So with Jesus's miracles, and now also, your wife Cheryl, her great granddad, I believe, he would heal people, right? So this work was not just left for the multi-dimensional being Jesus, but does it mean that people who do miracles here or actually have powers of that extent, are they also multi-dimensional beings for the fact that they could maneuver here in this world and heal, and also pull power or heal in other dimensions, if that's the right word you want to use?
Yeah, I think it's a good dimension, a good word to use is dimensions. But let me say this, Tim. In our created makeup, the Bible says we're made in the image and the likeness of God. God became flesh and dwelt among us. That's the incarnation of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was an example for us to see what it looked like to be fully immersed in both the natural and the supernatural realm simultaneously. He was the epitome of an interdimensional being. And his message is that you can be born again, and you also can interface in that dimension. And not only can you, but we're meant to interface in that dimension. And so we're to be born of the water, speaking of the embryonic fluid and the natural process of a woman's water breaks and the baby is born. But the Bible teaches that we're to be born of the water and of the Spirit. And the word that's used for people who are alive physically, but they're not interfaced with the supernatural dimension, is the word carnal. And it comes from the Greek word carne, meaning your body. It's like you got that, right? But you're not exercising any of your spiritual senses. And so you're alive in the natural realm, but your maturity has been stunted in the spiritual realm. So that's the whole teaching of the Bible, is we're supposed to learn to interface with equal enthusiasm in both realms.
Well, that's good to know, and I think for a lot of people, like this is focused on Christians now, since you're a Christian pastor, is a lot of them, like we said earlier, they're told by their pastors or in church, do not go there, do not look into anything beyond this earth, because you could be fooled. The devil comes in and speaks kindly to you, but he has a different agenda, and it can be a very evil agenda. And so a lot of humans, whether if they acknowledge themselves as multidimensional beings, are not prepared to interact with perhaps other multidimensional beings not from this dimension, because they're told not to trust or to discern. And I can understand that. I think on a practical level, based on your experiences, which we'll get into right now, it may not be such bad advice, other than if they perhaps had more training and more knowledge on how to deal with multidimensional beings, perhaps who don't have your best interest in play. And we'll get into angels and demons here in a minute. But before we do, I would like you to talk a little bit about your experience, Pastor, as an exorcist, and we could equate that to your experiences of perhaps a dimensional, different dimensions, as well as dealing with other multi-dimensional beings, not from Earth.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd love to share that story. And interestingly enough, I came up through the ranks of the groups that tell you don't delve into that territory because it's dangerous. And I went to a Bible college and graduated as the student body president and was a leader in the Bible college. But this was the issue that I ran into, Tim. I have a really sensitive BS meter. And so, you know, I don't just go along to get along. So I thought this very simply: if Jesus Christ is our leader, we have to really try to behave ourselves like he did. That led me to a verse in Scripture that said Jesus Christ went about doing good, that's the earthly realm, and healing those who were oppressed of the devil, that's in this area of supernatural healing and deliverance. And I thought to myself, I don't know diddly squat about healing those who are oppressed of the devil. And I graduated and was the student body president of a Bible college. So, you know, where's Waldo in that picture, right? And so I began to seriously study Jesus Christ as a model for us, because that's what he is meant to be, is the model of the perfect man, the God man. And I found out that 33% of all his recorded history is dealing directly with the unseen realm of angels and demons. And I thought, wow, we're missing the boat. We're just, humming kumbaya behind stained glass and living in an absolutely natural existence. And we have zero moxie in the spirit realm. And I wasn't content to do that. So in my quest, I managed to get excommunicated from the religious circle that I was in over just what you said. They said, we don't cast out demons. I said, objection, please. We're following Jesus Christ, and he was known for that. Well, that was a long time ago. I even had a pastor say, we don't think there are many evil spirits in America. It's like, obviously you don't get out much. There's a lot going on in America. But anyway, that was my quest, Tim. And when I began to try to help people get out of the occult, out of different weird cults and Luciferian Satanism, and there's a lot of dark stuff out there. And I did it just because my wife and I, we love human beings, and our motto was find a need and meet it, find a hurt and heal it. Well, if that's a natural need, it's pretty easy to do with natural commodities. If it's a spiritual need, then you can't meet that need apart from a spiritual solution. You can't bring a temporal solution to a spiritual need. And so
Give me
led us down.
Give me an example, Pastor, about perhaps when you or your wife, you find a situation with a human who's suffering, and how you distinguish between a human need or earthly need and then a spiritual need. And then at that point, what are the parameters that you do? And then at that point, you decide the solution needs to be either or, right?
Yeah. Well, there's some sleuthing that is necessary because we are interdimensional beings. And so I think we could say that nothing is exclusively natural or exclusively physical because it's impacted by other realms. However, it's pretty easy most of the time to determine if somebody is in need of deliverance, because there's a manifestation of spiritual evil that is fairly intense and very observable. So again, it's not always that that easy to sort out. But of course, I've been doing this for 25 years. So here would be an example of things that I run into often in the United States and in Western Europe. But there's a situation that has been featured on television 3 different times. It's near here, and it's in a little community called East Biggs. It was featured on The Haunting in East Biggs and several other of those paranormal channels. But the tragedy in my mind as a pastor, just as a caring human being, is 3 times that situation was exploited, but the people found no help. So a TV producer made some money. A lot of people watched it, but the people that were struggling with this evil entity were still struggling with the evil entity with no help. And so they heard about us, and we came up to do a cleansing on the house and on them, an exorcism, or we call it a lot of times deliverance or spiritual freedom, just, whatever language people are comfortable with to keep them from freaking out. But in any event, we were able to do a cleansing on the house. We were able to bring freedom to this couple that was being tormented by an evil spirit that was really well known in the community. People knew that terrible things were happening. They just didn't know what to do about it. And the tragedy to me, Tim, I get that a lot of people need help. The tragedy to me is the people that posture themselves as the solution to spiritual needs, i.e. the churches. Most of them don't know what to do. And it's because of rationalism, and it's because there's a real gap between what Christians say they believe in Scripture and the way they're actually living life.
So, Dave, that's fascinating what you're saying, because we really, like you said, a third of Jesus's teachings were in the supernatural, and our churches today, especially in Christianity, they're not teaching that. We're not prepared, especially for this extraterrestrial, multi-dimensional beings that we're seeing on the mainstream media now, potentially coming or here or whatever it may be. We're not prepared. Whether Christians or human beings or Americans, we're not prepared to deal with this aspect of beyond our reality, unlike a handful of people such as yourself. So to me, that's a fundamental flaw in religions, especially here in the West, because it's like I said, we're in a situation where we may not make the right decision because we're not prepared to deal with this. Now, I do want to jump into even a more famous exorcism that you experienced. If you don't mind, we could go there. In fact, I'm so glad you documented that in a book that you wrote, a small book, but it's a very powerful book. And I'll let you mention the name and everything. But what happened with Anton LaVey and his daughter, and how he was the I guess the minister of the Church of Satan in here in California. I guess he spread everywhere. But if you could share your experience with Anton LaVey and his daughter and what happened there all the way to the point of his death, I think that could help really explain to our viewers and our listeners what dealing in a supernatural perspective from a power of Christ, the power of God perspective, to deal with this level of other multidimensional beings that are pure evil or are not here for the humanity's best interest.
Yeah, so I was just a cowboy from a ranch in Idaho. That's how I grew up, right? So I didn't learn any of these things that we're talking about today from my Bible college training. I didn't learn any of these things from the Christian church. I learned these things from quite apart from those things, focusing on the teachings of Christ and the lifestyle of Christ, and then just trusting that God would help me to be able to follow the example of Christ in helping people. So our motto here is find a need and meet it, find a hurt and heal it. As we followed that, we met scores of natural needs for single moms, and on it goes, drug rehabs, a lot of things. But we also ran into spiritual needs, and I guess what pushed me forward was a stubbornness that said, I'm not going to settle on my leaves and just say, we cannot help, we have no answer for you. And so we just pushed forward and tried to help people. We had some wild experiences, as you can imagine. At the time, I had nobody to mentor me. I read lots of books and called around and tried to find help, and mainly used old books from many years ago, sometimes hundreds of years ago, and just the record of the Bible. But in doing that, we began to help people that had demonic issues. Demons are disembodied evil spirits from the antediluvian age. And so because they're disembodied, they look for human bodies to express through in this dimension. This whole show is about being interdimensional entities. And whenever you lose your corporeity, whenever your spirit and your soul is separated from your body, then you are in the ethereal or spirit dimension, or the astral plane. And so we are unique in that we are interdimensional. We can interface fully in this natural realm, and we're meant to interface fully in the spiritual realm. And in that realm, of course, there are, just like in the human realm, there are good and evil people. In the spirit realm, there are good and evil spiritual entities. But anyway, that's our birthright. We should all be learning to live in that. And so we really had to teach ourselves to walk, so to speak. But as we did that, a lady came into the church. We did not know who she was, but we helped people. And so we took this lady into our home, and we didn't realize until bizarre things started happening. All the horror movies you've seen combined into one. It was the nightmare on Wilbur Street for us. But anyway, as those things started happening, we just hung on to a faith that the good guys win. God's going to help us, and following the example of Jesus, and he was able to free people from demonic oppression. So again, it was trial and error. We learned when this woman whose birth name was Ray LeVay. Let me say this: that Anton LaVey, the Black Pope, the founder of the Church of Satan, the author of the Satanic Bible, a Crowleyite Satanist, he has a number of sons and daughters, and then there's a whole bunch of sons and daughters and offspring that are not in what they call the royal family. The royal family are the poster kids for the Church of Satan. And that's Zena LeVay. She's since renounced it, but Carla LeVay, Xerxes, Satan LeVay, and yet there are other offspring that are born out of sex rituals for certain purposes. Ray was one of those. She was conceived in a power convergence between the Church of Satan and the Lineandian black magic witchcraft. And so, in any event, she had gone through a whole life of satanic ritual abuse, and had been involved in 6 of the 7 rituals of defilement that Aleister Crowley came up with to completely defile a human being to the point that they couldn't be redeemed.